Greetings and welcome to the 24th episode of the Reconnect podcast and TV show. Today we have the distinguished guest, Dr. Catherine Lephoto. Greetings and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so very much. It's a great honor and joy to be here. It's so lovely to meet you, Daddy. Thank you.
Can you share with us what are you doing currently?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So currently, I do a lot of things. I'm an entrepreneur in general. I like to say I'm a sucker for punishment. Because if it wasn't for me liking to be punished, I'll probably still be in corporate, having a cushy office job and having an easy life, but I'm not. So it's so fascinating to meet you, and I would like to really acknowledge that, because I'm always looking, as you know how we ended up meeting you and I. You reached out to me on X because I am so fascinated to learn more about Yam Basotho and how you guys think and what you're doing. And I know that we're living in very tough times, economically, globally, and particularly for Lesotho. So I was really excited when you reached out to me on X, because I spend a lot of time looking at what you guys are doing on X. And today it's amazing to meet you and to learn that you are actually a graduate of computer science and mathematics and physics. Wow. So I love STEM subjects. I've always been a STEM girl myself, but I was never good at maths and physics. So I was a biology and chemistry person. But what do? Nowadays I play in your space of technology and computer science. I did computer science as a module, as a course when I was doing my first degree. Just one course, because it was I'm privileged to have studied in the United States, and I did a degree in I went to a liberal arts college. So when you do your degree in a liberal arts college, the beauty of that kind of education is that you get exposed to everything. So even though I went in there wanting to and knowing, I was a clever girl when I was in high school here. So as a clever girl, what happened in those days, and I think it's still happening now, in Lesotho, in our education system, normally when we see clever kids, the teachers, because there's not much career guidance at school here, right? So the teachers usually channel those kids into, you're going to be a doctor, go to medical school. So that's what I was supposed to have done. So when I went to college in the US, and we can talk about how that happened, but I ended up in a liberal arts college, University of Wisconsin, and part of that degree, how that degree is structured, is you have to take courses in many different faculties. And that's how I did a little bit of computer science. And in those days, computer science, we were learning C++ and Pascal. Right? So that's all I know about computer science. But fast forward to what I'm doing today. During the days of COVID, so before we got to COVID, so what I did post my first degree, the plan was to go to medical school at the time, but that didn't pan out. I ended up, and we can talk about why that didn't pan out, but I ended up doing a PhD instead, because when I was doing my degree, I started doing research, and I was published when I was still just a third-year student. Got published in genetics, very exciting. So I ended up doing my PhD in genetics. So I trained to be a molecular biologist. I'm a scientist at heart. That's what I am. But I then ended up working in industry. I worked in, post my being a scientist, I was actually working in academia. I love teaching and being a guide to young people as well. So I love that. But I then also went to industry. So I joined, I was headhunted by SAB, the South African breweries. Then I became a brewer, so I'm qualified as a brewing scientist as well. And beyond that, I also learned later in my life, around the time when I was in SAB, a little bit beyond that, I was in SAB for 6 years. And then I learned, I think I discovered what my true passion is. And you know what my true passion is? My true passion is not really science. My true passion is selling. Business development. And I'll tell you why I love business development. Business development helps me get to meet different people. So I learned that that's what I love. I really enjoy meeting different people, talking about whatever it is that I'm selling at the time, right? But the beauty of it is that I get to meet so many different people in different industries, learn to, get to know how people think and what's, what makes them tick. Because as I do that, I'm learning, right? And I'm improving what I know, and I'm expanding my view in life and all of that. And so I ended up at some point, so I was in the industry, in the brewing and food, manufacturing space for a very long time. And then I ended up starting my own company as a sales consultant. So what I was doing at that time, which is partly what I do today as well, is that I was representing a lot of different companies from Europe.
What was the name of the company? This episode is brought to you by Njays Family Restaurant, your go-to family spot nestled in Maseru West, Lesotho, serving up smiles and delicious bites for all ages. Visit Njays Family Restaurant today.
The first company that after SAB, I then went and worked for. I left SAB in 2009. I started my own company in consulting and training, right? And that took me to a very nice gig. I got a very nice contract with Heineken, the brewing company.
Yeah.
And I was training their operators. And because I was training their operators in their brewery in South Africa, where the entire brewery was set up by a German company called Krones. So, all the machinery in there comes from this German company. They are a massive conglomerate. That then got me a job with Krones. So the Krones guy said, hey, we are looking for someone to help us sell our equipment. Don't you want to come? That's what I did. And then beyond that, so I did that for a few years as well. And so I was representing Krones in South Africa, working in Krones, right? Then later on, I was again approached by an American company that is selling equipment in the same space. Why would I do that? Why would I leave a big German conglomerate to work for a smaller but American company? The reason is this, and hopefully that can be a little bit of a lesson for young people watching this podcast, is that what I then wanted at that time, I started feeling like, hey, as I work at Krones, I was limited to South Africa, right? That was my territory. But with this American company called Philtech, I got to take care of the entire sub-Saharan Africa. Wow. I loved that because then I got to travel all over. And to this day, I met so many amazing people all over the continent, especially in East Africa, I must tell you. So in places like Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, and most of those people I'm still in contact with even today. And that was exciting for me. But then, with business, in career, and this is important, I think Yamba should need to understand this. You must always have a mindset of wanting to learn, right? So I believe in lifelong learning, because if you believe in lifelong learning, you will always see opportunities as they present themselves to you, right? You should never be satisfied and comfortable in whatever you're doing. You must always want to do more, and doing more can just be meeting other people, getting a new client, going to a different country. If you have that attitude towards life, the world opens up to you, right? So at this point now, I'm representing this American company. They are based in California. So once a year, I would have to go to the US, right? Which was also great because now it takes me back to where I studied. And this was before Facebook became more popular, whatever. But that was cool. And then later on, when you're working in somebody else's company and they have a certain vision about how they want to do things, but then you start seeing that, you know what, I could actually do things slightly differently. So that's how now ideas of starting your own thing. Remember, I had started my own business before when I left SAB. But now I'm working, I'm a corporate person again. But then I'm thinking, there's something missing. I still want to go back to do my own thing. And by the way, remember when we started, I said to you, I'm a sucker for punishment. Because everybody else would have been so happy just chilling, getting this, nice salary, traveling the world and so on. But I thought, okay, I'm still selling this. Okay, I can do better. And I started thinking about the continent and the people I'm meeting. I'm meeting a whole lot of professionals in the space. Remember now, we're dealing in the beverage space. So in the beverage space, dealing in beverage at that time or even now, the big players are SAB, right? The guys that are here as well with Maluti, right? It's SAB. You then have your Heineken, and then you have Castel and Carlsberg. Those are the four players at the time. On the soft drink side, you have Coca-Cola, you have a bit of Pepsi, depending on where on the continent you are. For example, in Uganda, I was actually quite fascinated to notice that in Uganda, Pepsi is bigger than Coke.
Wow.
But here, we are bigger. Coke is a bit bigger. But as I'm traveling and I'm meeting all these professionals, and a lot of them are engineers, because, in the manufacturing space, it's a lot of engineers, very few, or some microbiologists like me, whatever. I start looking at the caliber of talent and skill that resides in Africans across, sub-Saharan Africa. And I keep thinking, there's something that should be done if we all came together and made a critical mass as professionals. Imagine if we could all now put all of our efforts towards something that's our own, our own soft drink, right? I know how you people here, you young people in Lesotho, you love Maluti, right? Maluti is an amazing beer for you. It's a great beer. I enjoy it. It's a great beer. But one of the times we were interacting on X, it was fascinating to me to learn, because I posted a comment in there around Maluti. I don't even remember what was going on, but many Basotho don't even know that Maluti is not owned here. You all just drink it, but you don't own it. There is no Basotho beer, right? So that's what drives me, right? To say, how do we collaborate as African professionals whilst at the same time grooming young people, for all of us to bring our brains together and build something that is our own? It's not so easy, especially when you're trying to do it all over, a vast landmass like Africa. But I think the mindset has to be inculcated. The mindset has to start somewhere. So I then left my American employers, sucker for punishment, decided to do my own thing again. In between, when I left the Americans, I was actually recruited by a French company.
Wow.
In the same space, but with them, we don't even appear on my CV. You know why? Because I was there for 3 months.
Wow.
I walked in and I walked out.
What was the reason? Visit TM Properties and Real Estate Investment Company. They are located at Medcash Complex. Their services include property evaluation, site inspection, property survey, property investments, property management, property rentals. They buy and sell property. Visit today.
Right. So what was the reason? So one thing about me, which, as you get older, you learn more things about yourself, and it's important. I value honesty and I value ethics, and I cannot tolerate people who misrepresent themselves to me, like who lie. I cannot stand that. So what had happened with this company, and I will not name them, what had happened is that when they recruited me, they painted a beautiful picture of their company. And when I walked in, I discovered that the reality was not the same. The company was in crisis, and then the other thing that happened was, it may sound small, but it was important to me, right? So they recruit me. My profile says I'm Dr. Catherine Lephoto. They recruit me. When I get in, and I'm issued my business cards. Remember, I'm still going to be selling all over the continent, right? My business cards don't have my title. So I'm like, what's up with this? Oh no, it is not our company policy to put titles on business cards. So I'm like, okay, fine. I'm not vain, right? It's not a matter of vanity, but it's a matter of knowing the market and how it operates on this continent. Titles open doors in this continent. If I call a CEO of some company in Nigeria or in Uganda or whatever, and I'm saying, hello, I'm Dr. Catherine, I'm the Senior Vice President for this company, they pay attention. But if I say I'm Catherine, do you see what I mean?
Yes.
And the fact that, and I said to them, this was my other argument, I said to them, listen, when you recruited me, you found me based on my title. That's very clear on my LinkedIn profile and so on. You shouldn't have come to me if titles was not a policy for you. Your company, you should have understood, or you should have at least disclosed to me. And I would have explained to you that this is not going to work, because what you're going to be doing is that you're going to make my life very difficult. It will be very difficult for me to open doors and represent you and get business for you. Anyway, so I was there for a couple of months. Yes. So I'm like that. I'm very, very particular about not standing. I don't, if you look at my ex profile, you'll also notice I said, what did I say in there? I said, I am intolerant of mediocrity. So if you misrepresent things, if you lie, if you are not open and honest, to me that's also a form of mediocrity. It shows that you're not a good person. I don't like that. So I cannot represent a brand that I don't believe is good, right? Anyway, fast forward, then I went back and started doing my own thing again, and at this time I actually managed to get onto my books as a sales consultant, business development consultant. I had a company from Switzerland, I had a company from the US, I had two companies, one from Italy and another one from the UK, that I was representing all over the continent, again in business development. These are guys that have, in that case, it was equipment. They're equipment manufacturers, and they wanted to get market share in the African continent, and that's what I was doing until COVID. Then COVID struck, and I lost all of my contracts because that kind of job wants you to travel. So remember, with COVID, we had lockdowns, and with lockdowns, all of that had to fall away. And then I was brought home. And I'm not going to go into the detail of coming to lead the NACOSEC here. It's not a great story. I don't like that because it's a story that made me, on the one hand, I was excited to get involved with that opportunity. If you can call it an opportunity. It was a call to action, right? It was my Prime Minister at the time saying to me, hey, I need your skill set as a scientist, as a molecular biologist. We're dealing with a virus, we don't know what to do. Then, I need that, your skill set in here. But then it turned out badly. It doesn't matter. What it did for me is that it helped me understand, because it was the first time in my life that I had worked in this country. I had never worked in Lesotho. I left this country when I was 17 years old. So when I came back in 2020, it was the first time I had an opportunity to come here. And
so the high school you attended?
I went to St. Mary's. Quiet. And when I finished in 1990, I was one of the top 3 students in the country. Wow. That's why I went overseas. I was sent to the US at that time. That's how it happened. Told I was a clever girl. COVID brought me to your industry sector, to technology. Because when the COVID vaccine started being rolled out globally, it was around November 2020. Maybe you're too young to remember what was going on, but what was going on at that time was that African countries were struggling to get a hold of the vaccine. Right, the vaccines were being prioritized for the US market, for Europe, and of course the Chinese were doing their own thing. Around that time, and that is why it was at that point it became important, very important. The fact that I had the skill set that I had as a molecular biologist was super important, because I was able to lead discussions on behalf of the government of Lesotho to engage vaccine manufacturers from all over the world. I remember there was a conversation about Russia, for example. I was able to ask the right questions, because I can promise you, had we not had a person like me in those conversations, we might have found ourselves getting in serious trouble, being injected with funny things. Trust me. But anyway, around the time when the vaccines were being rolled out, I get a call from a friend of mine in the US from college days. Who's like, hey, I got these friends who are in the tech industry, and they have developed a blockchain platform for tracking COVID vaccines. I'm like, blockchain, what's that? Remember, I did computer science when it was Pascal. If then else. Remember? I'm sure you didn't even learn that language, because you guys are doing all sorts of fancy things nowadays. You're doing Python and Java and blockchain. Yeah, in blockchain you're doing Solidity and all these fancy things, right? So she says, very good friend, maintained contact all these years, and by this time now, obviously, we are now on Facebook. It's easier to reconnect with people. And yeah, she's like, no, these young chaps, they are friends of mine, and they've started this tech company, and they've developed this platform for tracking COVID vaccines, and they want to see if they can open up, the market in Africa. So they asked me if I know anybody, and I said, well, the only person I know there is you, and you are even involved with COVID, so perfect. That's how I got into this whole space. So I started learning about blockchain technology. Not as you would, like learning to program it. No, not my interest. My interest is, what can you do with this thing, right? What can you do with this new technology? So I start going down this rabbit hole of crypto and, these are the things that, remember at that time, now it was 2021, 2021. And by that time, there had already been a lot of crypto scams in this market, right? So I'm like, that's interesting, but not for me. I'm not going to do that. But what are these guys really saying? So I had a conversation with them, and they explained to me, this is how this thing works, and the reason it makes sense is because, the person, the owner of the data, has full power on the data and control, and they can share it as and when they please with the person they choose to. So the peer-to-peer transmission of data. So remember, at that time, South Africa is starting to say, fine, we'll open the borders only for people who are vaccinated. That's how the whole thing is. Remember, it was lockdowns, right? Now it's December, it's time for Christmas, people want to come home. But then for them to go back to South Africa, they need to kind of show that they are vaccinated. And I'm thinking, okay, now I'm a scientist again, and I'm starting to think about ethics as well, right? I did one of the courses I did at college was biomedical ethics, right? It's very, very important. Biomedical ethics is so important in the health provision sector, right? Because this is the kind of area where you now need to think carefully about, for example, if I go to my doctor now, I'm sick, and they diagnose me with whatever disease, right? they are ethically bound to keep that knowledge private, right?
Yes.
But what we know sometimes happen is that, especially when the first wave of HIV, for example, started coming into our continent, we know that companies, for example, in the insurance industry, were starting to tap that information. So my insurance company would say, oh, they know, oh, she's been diagnosed with HIV. Suddenly my premiums go up because they are now assuming that I will die soon. That's unethical, but that's what happens. So I've always been, I've always been interested in that aspect of healthcare as well, how it intersects financial services, i.e. insurance services. So now when you're bringing COVID vaccination status and you're saying you cannot cross the border unless you can show that you're vaccinated, it becomes very important to think about how does a patient, a traveler in this case, how does a traveler prove to the border agent that they are vaccinated? And how do they do it in a way that does not compromise their other medical records? This is very crucial, right? Because if I just go there with my clinic card, I am not supposed to be showing my clinic card, my health record, to a non-health practitioner. So that's why for me the blockchain solution that these guys had became interesting, and that's why I decided to learn more about it, not knowing that that is how my career would now completely go down this path of blockchain technology, where currently as I speak to you, we have now brought in the first blockchain smartphone into this market. This is a blockchain device, right? Amazing stuff.
How is it different from the ordinary phone?
Looking for fast, reliable internet? Visit Jenny Internet Lesotho today.
Correct. How is it different from? So it is an Android device like any other Android device. However, what it does is on the back end, as far as firstly storing the information that you store on it, the encryption is done in a decentralized way on blockchain technology. The other thing that makes it really unique, and for young people like you who have learned computer science and maybe want to build businesses using the device, is that this is a platform upon which you can build your own devices, your own apps, your own decentralized apps. So you don't just buy it and use it for WhatsApp and for phoning me and doing Facebook. You actually buy it with the mindset to say, I'm going to use this device to build upon it, to make money off of it, to learn off of it, because this device pays you every month. It pays rewards in cash. This device has an education app on it, so you can learn a whole lot of things from this device, anyone who has the phone. Now, if you come back to how my career started in education, right? I was an academic when I was doing my PhD. And I've always loved teaching. That's why I did, my very first business was in training and consulting, remember I told you. So this brings in those two elements. This new technology that people in other parts of the world are making massive money out of, and we are sitting here not knowing much about it. And it also brings my love for training and education and teaching together, whilst at the same time it's addressing something that I feel very close to my heart, to say young people in Africa deserve, not need, they deserve, it's their right to be given opportunities to improve their lives, because governments in Africa will never be able to create job opportunity for all youth. Forget about that. But what governments need to do is to open up opportunities and make it easy in terms of the way they design and implement policy for young people to be able to make themselves sustainable globally using technology. So what we will be doing with this device is, for example, we will be, over time, we'll start identifying young people like you, others who have self-taught themselves computer science and programming and the like. And imagine we are able to now then plug you into a job in a company like Google, in a company like Facebook, Microsoft, whatever, and you are earning all those dollars when you are here at home. That would be amazing, wouldn't it?
So it would be really amazing.
Look at you have set yourself up here. I mean, this is podcasting. It's a big thing, right?
Yes,
people in other parts of the world are making millions of dollars being podcasters, right? And you, as a young person in Lesotho, you have seen this is something you can do. I bet you nobody, I'm sure you will tell me, nobody at NUL taught you to be a podcaster, am I right?
Yes, nobody taught.
So how come your lecturer in computer science at NUL has never come and said, hey, Thapelo, here's a job for you, do podcasting? He can't. His focus is to get through the curriculum. But you guys, because you now live in this amazing new world of technology, and we're not even talking about AI yet, because that's also doing its own thing at a very fast pace and a speed that I don't think any of our people here actually appreciate, right? We're not even talking about that. We're just talking about the basics of your computer science degree. That when we graduated, we were very happy. We had a big party at home. Your mom was very proud. And then the next day, what happened? Everybody is gone. But let me say, seeing you at home. You see what I mean? So for mine is to kind of lead that kind of mindset shift, I guess. Hopefully influence young people in Lesotho to see themselves rising higher than their circumstances, right? So for instance, the fact that a phone like this, imagine you are a kid in grade 10, grade 11, right? You're here, and you, through the schooling programs, you are given this device as part of your education tools. So now suddenly you have access to the best math teachers, regardless whether you're going to an amazing school like St. Stephen's. I have no relationship to St. Stephen's, I can say St. Mary's, okay. Or you are going to a school like Mapodong High School, which is not so well empowered, right? But suddenly, because you have technology, you can get the best tuition. Isn't that amazing? And then past that, imagine you are able to get a job overseas, even as you are living here at home. Earning US dollars, my dear, when you are spending in Maludi, that's very nice.
Yeah.
That is very, very nice. I would like that. Right? So that's kind of what I do now. So I see my daily life is twofold. On the one hand, of course, I'm building my business. I need to get this phone into as many people as possible so that I can also make money and pay my bills. But on the other hand, I feel like what I really need to do and what I try and strive to do every day is to try and inspire somebody else, even if it's one person. If I can put out a positive message out there, if I can, when a young person like you reaches out to me on social media and say, hey doc, I would like to spend, I make myself available. Just today I got probably 2 other people from Lesotho who are reaching out for different reasons. I mean, some of them are asking, help, can you help me find a job? I mean, it's a very difficult thing to do because there are very few jobs going around now. But guess what? A lot of the times, the help I can do in that space is to say, send me your CV, let me look at your CV. So I critically assess the CV and I give them feedback to say, no, your CV is not selling you. Work on your CV, sort it out this way and that way. And guess what? Suddenly they called me back a few weeks later and said, I got an interview. I'm like, yeah, because the CV is now different, So, I don't know.
You have also been the board member in several companies, including in insurance space.
Correct. So nowadays, hey, why am I here today? Actually, I'm here this week because this week we had, I sit on the boards of two companies under a big umbrella. So Metropolitan Lesotho, everybody knows that. Metropolitan Lesotho has two subsidiary companies. One of them is the health business, so that's their medical aid business. I sit on the board of that company. And then lately, a year or so ago, they launched a new company as well called Metropolitan Lesotho Asset Managers. So that's an asset management company. So I sit on that board as well, right? How does a scientist like me, who I must tell you, when I did I did a diploma in business management, and one of the core modules was business finance, which included accounting and stuff. I hate that stuff. I was so bad at it. Right? So how does a person like that end up sitting on boards of companies in the financial services industry? I think there's a couple of things that I bring to the table. The main one is, as a scientist, you're taught a very important thing about being a doctorate, having a PhD. The core skill you learn when you're doing a PhD is you learn how to think critically. Critical thinking is a very important skill, when you're presented with information. The way you approach the analysis of that information is very, very important. So I think I bring that core skill to that board, and also my business development skill, right? Because obviously any business has to constantly bring more clients in, right? And then of course my extensive experience in the public health space, in the knowledge of how this market works in terms of the medical, the medical aid business, the insights I got when I was here around COVID helped me understand how Basotho, it's called in the public health space, it's called the health-seeking behavior of the population, right? So what does that mean? For example, we know that in our communities here in Lesotho, most people only go to the doctor when they feel really, really ill. You know what I mean? Unlike if you look at communities in the West, right, where people know routinely they go to see a dentist, whether they have a toothache or not. You go to the dentist routinely. You go and see your GP, and they go and do they run a whole battery of tests on how's your heart performing, how your kidneys looking, that kind of thing. We don't do that, so it helps to having that knowledge and that background. I think it helps me be able to contribute meaningfully, and I like to think that. My interest and passion for young people is very important for those two businesses as well, right? Because no business, especially in insurance, no business is sustainable if new members are not coming in. So with insurance, the way the insurance industry basically works, the simplest way to look at it is that you need a huge number of members that are not claiming in order to subsidize the few who are claiming. Do you follow? Yes. So when you're running a health, like a medical aid business, you want to have a lot of young, healthy people who are paying every month, because the few older people that are getting sick, then you can sustain their care. That's technically how it works. So that's why, if you are like me and you just have a genuine interest and passion for young people and how they're thinking and how their behavior looks and so on and so forth, you would be valuable, I think, on the board of a company like that. I don't know, but you have to ask my chairman about that, whether I'm adding value or not. But yeah, so those are the things that I do.
Wow, you do lots of great things, and your story is inspirational.
Thank you.
What can you say to young people who graduated from high school and they want to go to varsity and they don't know what career they can pursue?
Yeah. That's such a very, very, very important question, especially in the context of Lesotho, right? So one of the things that I'm so grateful to have had in my life is the privilege, and it is a really privilege, the privilege of having gotten a US education when I did. That's a huge privilege, because the setup of that country in terms of the education system values the input of career counselors. So every school has career counselors. So these people are not teachers. They don't go to class every day and teach X, Y, and Z. Their job is to guide the students and give them, a view of what their opportunities might be, giving the students what? Strengths. Because everybody is worth something. Everybody is capable of something. But unfortunately, when you are in countries like ours, where there is not really good capacity in that kind of area, this is where we end up with kids that we say, udom, you'll never amount to anything. Not good, not right? Because me, for example, if you ask me to build this table, I'm useless. I don't know how to do anything with my hands. I'm brainy, but I'm not hands-on. Somebody else is very, very gifted in their hands. They can do, they can be artists. They can paint that beautiful, beautiful picture that we have over there. They can build tables and chairs, whatever, and I cannot do that. So, what would I say to young people in this country that are finishing school? I would say, going back to what I said about myself earlier, it's very important to keep an open mind and have an attitude that says, I want to keep learning. Going to school is just the first step of your life, right? It is good and correct to use the skills that you learn to build on. Even graduates like you, just because you ended up doing a degree in computer science does not mean your life has to be in computer science. You should be willing, in business we call it pivoting. You should be willing to pivot and take a different direction with your life. It is crucial in this country, and I just had a conversation with one of the big telecommunications company. It is crucial for young people in this country to use their time online to build themselves. Because the internet opens everyone and anyone up to opportunities. But if you're going to spend time on the internet, on Facebook, just to go and be mean to other people and post useless, weird, videos and be, insult people, older, younger, whatever, really, is that the best way you can use your data? Rather, use your time online if you are privileged enough, because again, not every kid in this country has access to the internet. But if you are privileged enough to have that access, use it to better your life. One thing I pick up about Lesotho all the time is that young people in Lesotho are very timid. Is it not true? And I think it comes from our culture. So in our language, Sesotho says, right? that is how we grow up. We grow up internalizing this message, this mindset that says, oh, you mustn't come across as being, overly showing off, and, because it can be interpreted as arrogance, whatever, right? And that's a problem. You should not be arrogant, because arrogance is also not attractive. It's actually terrible. But you should be confident. You should be willing to put yourself out there, because the world is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and young people are collaborating all over the world. It's important to understand that these guys that are sitting in parts of the world where they have opportunities, especially to develop technologies, right? Technological solutions. Most of them are building solutions that cannot be sold in their own markets, right? Because their own markets are mature. For instance, if you think about a typical teenager in the United States, a kid like that has running water, has constant electricity. He can be very clever and have the opportunity and the ability to develop an app for, perhaps, as an example, using the same analogy of water, perhaps they can be clever enough to develop an app that can help to do what? To conserve water. But there is really no need in their market for that. But if that same person was to do what? Was to connect with Thapelo in Lesotho, who comes from a country where you have a whole district like Mafeteng, where people struggle to find water. The two of you together, you can build an amazing business, right? Because he's got the what? He's got access to technology, access to funding to set up the business. You know the key issues here, right? You have what is called local context. Local context is extremely important in business. So what I'm saying, Thapelo, is I would like to see more and more young Basotho understanding and embracing the fact that they are part of a bigger picture. Just because you were born and you live in Lesotho does not mean you are limited to this country, especially in this new world of technology, because data does not need a passport, right? It can go anywhere. So if you can use your brain to get onto that drive of data-based businesses, data-based mindset.
So what can you say to parents who have children, how they can, but they say, bana ba bona hantle,
yeah,
and choosing careers, and also some parents they only know knowledge and
true.
they're not updated in this technology.
This is very true, yeah.
So any advice to them?
So my advice to parents, and yes, I mean, it's a very important question. I'm so glad you raised that, because I think, now speaking as a parent, but I guess I'm a different parent to the type of parent you're talking about right now, right? You young people, the generation today, you're very, it's not easy for us to raise you. We don't know how to handle you, you know. The other day I was talking to my son, he's 17, and he, you know, I'm sure you do this as well. You know, you'll say something, I'm like, no, but what do you, no, mommy, don't worry, it's not that deep. What is this? It's not that deep thing, right? So my advice to parents is that, you know, firstly, we need to acknowledge that we are living in times that are changing rapidly. It is okay for us to feel like we don't know, because yes, we don't know. So it is important for us to trust you guys. And I think by trusting you guys, I mean, let us support you. So if Thapelo came to me and I was his mom and he said, Mom, I need 10 rand to buy this setup to do a podcast, I'm sure that was an argument with your mom. Like, what are you talking about? I mean, really? But maybe we just need to give you guys a bit of trust, believe in you. I said before, one of the things that is important, I think, in life, which is again something that unfortunately are teaching, our school systems in Africa, and particularly in Lesotho, we don't do well, is that we don't know how to teach children to believe in themselves. Believing in your dreams is super, super important. And then you need people to support you in that belief. Right? So what can I tell parents? We need to trust these young people. They don't know everything and they mess up, absolutely. And you guys also need to be fair to us and do what? And do what's best for you guys. Make the right choices. Right? So if, for example, I'm a mother to a young man like you, and from an early age, I have seen you being very passionate about, music and whatever, right? It is important for me to trust that and support that process. But at the same time, remember, as a mother, I'm worried that if Thapelo does not actually break it into the industry, what is going to be? How is he going to live his life? How is he going to support himself? Understand? So I think it's a give and take, if I can answer that question that way. It's a give and take where you guys as young people need to help us trust you, like give us indications that you know what you're doing or you're committed to doing the right thing. So that when you say to me, and I'm just a mother who only knows nursing and teaching, and you say, oh, I'm going to be a podcaster and I'm going to have 1 million followers. And when I wake up at 5 a.m. to get ready to go to work, when you are still sleeping, then I don't know whether you'll even wake up. It's problematic. You see what I mean? But honestly, I think you young people need to also acknowledge that, it's very difficult for parents these days because the world is changing so rapidly. I look at my father. My father is 88. He doesn't have a smartphone. He doesn't want a smartphone because all he wants is to be able to send a phone. I don't think he even sends an SMS. And I think it's fine. That's the world he understands. That's the world he's comfortable in. Right? Similarly, I'm not on Instagram. I don't want to be there. This is one thing that I agreed with my son. Mommy, please, no, Instagram. I'm not on TikTok. I don't want to do that stuff, right? So I think it's kind of
Facebook.
I'm on Facebook, and I'll tell you why I'm on Facebook. I'm on Facebook because remember when I told you back about how I went to school and stuff like that. When Facebook started, it started on a very good platform of connecting people. We were, so if you had gone to school overseas like I did, it was a brilliant platform. But if you look at, I'm not active. I'm not there every day. I have very few connections locally. Because I worry that I don't like how Lesotho use Facebook. Let's just put it that way. That doesn't, I have a lot of young people that I can say I mentor, and one of them, a young chap in South Africa, every day he sends me stuff, every day on WhatsApp, and I have taught him this, that if I don't respond to something you send me, you must know that it's because it has no value to my life. So if it doesn't have any value to my life, I'm not going to engage. Or if you ask me a question that I know you know the answer to, or I know you should know where to find an answer to, I'm not going to answer it. Right? So I love that kind of engagement, and I'm open to that. I really am. I always say to people that I'm very privileged. I'm very blessed because I feel like, some of the choices I've made in life in terms of my career have landed me here now, where I have relative time freedom. I call it time freedom. Where you have the the privilege to wake up and say, what do I feel like doing today? Maybe I'll just read a book, So I really give a lot of my time to young people. I really try.
Any advice we can give to government and different stakeholders on how they can fight this crisis of youth unemployment and how they can help?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not an easy question with a direct answer, but I'll try. The first thing I think is about government leadership in Lesotho especially must understand and acknowledge that as government they cannot employ these young people in Lesotho. It starts there. We need to stop fooling ourselves thinking that people like Thapelo, after they graduated Gahoma, they must now the next week they show up at Public Service Commission and get onto the list, the database. Because Thapelo's name will be on that database for the next 10 years. So government in Lesotho needs to appreciate that it's not sustainable for them to be the biggest employer. The young people of today cannot be employed in government because there's just not enough jobs. But what can government do? Government, once they understand that it is not their role and their responsibility to create employment, they then need to understand what their true responsibility is. And their true responsibility is to what? Is to create a conducive environment for business to thrive. What does that mean? We talked about the gig economy, we talked about blockchain technology, the Web3 space. This country needs to adopt policy and legislation that makes it possible for young people like you to participate in that space, because currently that policy doesn't exist. So those young people that I don't know if I mentioned to you, the 3 young people that won a hackathon in Cape Town. I didn't mention that, I mentioned it to somebody else. There's a group of young people here from Bogoti. We set up a hackathon in Cape Town last year, September, and they went and won it. Wow. Amazing stuff. And everybody, and this was a global hackathon. There were guys coming in from Eastern Europe, from the US and so on. And people, even in Cape Town, were amazed that there's talent of blockchain developers here in Lesotho, right? To pay those guys their winnings was very difficult because that money had to be transferred as stablecoin, because that's how that industry works. But you can't bring that kind of money into this country because of policies in this country. So here I am sitting here and saying to you, hey, we need to go out and tell your friends that there's this new technology and this new economy that's happening and I need more of them to participate. But then when you guys try to participate, you're not able to get paid because of your country where you live, because your country is saying, hey, we are opposed to everything to do with digital assets. It's not good. So how do you want to do it? And this is funny enough. Just before you arrived, and I was posting, I was expecting you. I just posted on X a short while ago to say, because somebody had posted a question. If somebody had put up a post that said, "Oh, it is so upsetting that members of parliament in this country do not even show up at work." Wow. Right, in parliament. And I said, you know what? If young people in Lesotho could be so as excited about their own, survival as they are about bootlicking and whatever you call them, because you guys need to demand better from your political leaders. You can't go and elect somebody to go and represent you in parliament. Parliament is a place where laws are passed. And then they don't show up for work. And then Luna, you're just sitting and doing nothing. Do you see what I mean? So it's really about, I think it's a two-pronged thing. I think government Lesotho governments or administrations, for many years now, they have gotten, in my view, and I'm not a politician, I don't intend to be one, I don't care to be a politician, but over the years, we have watched aghast as elected leaders became more and more disrespectful to the electorate. I think it's disrespectful. If I give you a job, I expect you to come to work. Why are you not coming to work if I've given you a job? So similarly, young people in this country have to start understanding that when you elect people to go and represent you in parliament, you have given them a job, and it is their responsibility to show up, because when they show up, they are serving you. And this, if we can get the right people who internalize that responsibility, and I've written it on X, I know you follow me, where I have said we cannot keep calling people bomuhlompei and expect them to serve us, because muhlompei automatically that terminology, that phraseology says you are important, you are here. So if you are muhlompei, how are you going to worry about me down here, because now I'm down here? It should actually be the other way around. Bomuhlompei is us, because we are the ones who put them there, not me, because I don't vote in this country. But anyway, that's the story for another day.
Oh, thank you so much for being on the Reconnect podcast and TV show. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
Just to say thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the grace. Thank you for your vision, really, because I think one thing that is missing in countries like this one is young people don't have a place to kind of come together and share what they're thinking. They don't know, some of them don't know how to access, knowledge or wisdom, for lack of a better word. So thank you for that, and thank you for, for as I say, for that vision. I'm really impressed by that, and I'm glad you reached out, and I hope this was a valuable time for you, because time is important. And keep in touch. Let's keep talking. Good luck to you and all of your followers and the community. You call them the Reconnect community. Yes, the Reconnect community. Let's get on board. There are so many opportunities I think that you guys can take advantage of. The first one is, of course, getting onto this amazing blockchain smartphone called the Phoenix X, and let's see what you can do with it. But yeah, absolutely, really great.
How can people find the phone?
From me, or you can get it in. Currently, we have it in Pick and Pay stores, select Pick and Pay stores in Cape Town and Johannesburg. But I think the easiest way is to get it through me. In the next weeks, hopefully not too long a period, you'll start seeing it in the market here as well, through very big companies as well. So let's do it, and guys, all the best. I love young people in Lesotho. I wish all the best for you guys. If ever there is anything I can do to assist, I don't have jobs, guys. I cannot offer anybody employment. But what I can offer and what I do have is I can make time, I can give you advice, I can guide you where I can. And I wish you all the best.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.